right. Good evening. Welcome to our third episode of Percussionistics. I am Colin Bossler, joined always by my partner in crime, Glenn Jones. Doctor, how are you tonight?
I'm fantastic. Happy New Year, my
Excellent.
friend.
Yes, thank you. Happy New Year to all of our listeners as well. So, I am particularly interested in, I guess we'll call it a game, maybe, or some sort of fantasy draft kind of thing we're going to do later tonight. I'll give you guys all the rules and the things that we're going to do with our list of 20 drummers. But in the meanwhile, we have to make sure we start, of course, with our highlights and our news. So, Glenn, why don't you tell us what's happening out there in the world of percussion and what you want to start with this week?
Okay. Well, the nominees for the Drumeo Awards were just announced. So, for those of you not familiar with Drumeo, it's basically one of the biggest online drum education platforms that's out there. They've got lessons and master classes from top level professionals covering everything from beginner stuff all the way up to really advanced, crazy stuff. And so they give awards out for 15 categories, kind of like best rock drum performance, um, pop drummer of the year, R&B, country, those things. It also includes a drummer of the year award for social media platforms, specifically YouTube drummer of the year and TikTok drummer of the year, Instagram drummer of the year. So altogether, there's 15 categories. And, of course, among those 15 categories is drummer of the year. So those nominees are Alon Rubin, and he's the drummer for Nine Inch Nails. And you probably are familiar with him.
Yeah,
You're,
that's
yeah.
cool.
So now here's what's interesting about Alon. He was inducted in 2020 with Nine Inch Nails. Nails. And
We
Nine
know who
Inch
they are.
Nails.
Nine Inch Nails. We got it.
Now, when he was inducted with them, he was only 32 years old, which made him the youngest inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I never knew that.
Yeah,
Dropping a
that's
little
pretty
knowledge.
cool.
Thank you, sir.
That's cool. So Alon Rubin. Another is Abe Cunningham from the Deftones,
Okay.
and he's also a nominee for the Recording of the Year award for Deftones' private music album.
My
Uh,
buddy was going on about that album, and I have not listened to it. I'll be fair. I've never been a big Deftones guy. I've tried. Have you listened to them? Are you familiar with their music?
not consciously. So if I
Okay.
did, I didn't know it was them.
Okay. Okay. I'm glad. Listen, I'm glad he's getting love, and I guess I'll have to pay attention to it. It is a well-respected release in 2025. Rolling Stone loved it too, and I'm not the biggest Rolling Stone fan, but they loved it too. So it's nice that he's getting some love. I've tried with the Deftones. It's just not my thing, but
Hmm.
maybe I'll try again.
Well, how about the band Sleep Token?
I have heard that they have they're quickly becoming very popular and have a huge following already started. I have not spent a lot of time with their music, but I'm very familiar reading about them, and there's a major push for them behind them, and I think they're going to be one of those bands that's really in the next few years going to pop really in a large way. And I think they're going to start doing some major shows, and people love them.
Okay. Well, their drummer named Two, spelled in Roman numerals, so it looks like two capital I's.
Right.
He's also a nominee for Drummer of the Year. Um, I've heard his name a couple of times. I know he's kind of mysterious. He wears a mask.
They all do. Yeah.
Oh, they
Sleep
also.
tokens. They all got the masks on and
All right.
all that stuff. Yeah.
So he as well is up for Recording of the Year for
Nice.
his work in Sleep Tokens, even in Arcadia. I'm not familiar with that work. Another candidate is Anika Neelis. Colin Neelis. I
Nihilist.
pronounced his last name
Well done, sir.
correct. So, and then last of the nominees for the Drummer of the Year award, but certainly not least, is your boy, Mike Portnoy,
There you go.
back with Dream Theater.
There you go. Good
And
for you, Mike.
yep. And he's also up for Recording of the Year for Parasomnia.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So tell me about. I'm sorry to interrupt. Drumeo. Who selects like, how does Drumeo give their awards? Who makes up Drumeo? Because 'Cause I'm not familiar with
Yeah.
this
I
thing.
I know that they have a lot of top line educators and a lot of experienced pro drummers.
Mhm.
It didn't talk about what their selection process was, but just the website is phenomenal. So,
Okay.
you know,
Alright. Now they win the award, do they get anything? I'm not asking what item they get, but is there some sort of, is there a response in the music world to winning this award? Do they get to teach master classes? Do they have a hall of winners? Do they have some sort of announcement? Like, how do I know if I'm the Drumeo drummer of the year?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't.
To be
Yeah,
continued,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I don't know if you get the award, and instead of it being the person, holding the Oscar looking, maybe it's a
Right.
drumstick.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Well, you know what? That'd be a nice follow-up. I'd like to know who
Right.
for 1, I'd like to know who wins, and 2, I think it'd be kinda cool to find out what happens for him.
I'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Yeah, it probably comes up in their interviews when they're in Modern Drummer and
Yeah,
Drum Magazine, things like that. And just okay. Or
please.
was that me?
That was it. You're finishing up your highlights, and then I've got
Okay.
mine.
So finally, our the last of the news segments, a little bit of a somber note. Just want to mention in the passing of Jelly Bean Johnson. He is the drummer for The Time in the Family.
Okay.
Those are two Prince affiliated
Mhm.
bands. Real groove guy. He died on December 4th. So it's
How
everybody
old was he?
who's 64.
Wow, that's young.
Yeah, yeah.
What's his most famous work? How would I know his big impact? Was it with The Time? Was it with Prince? What's his major accolade,
Well, mostly is with The Time,
right?
and so all their songs. So Morris Day, anything with
Okay.
Morris Day, and I believe he may have been in Purple Rain because The Time was predominant in that movie.
Right.
So he's been the drummer with them the whole time.
Okay. Well, rest in peace, Jelly Bean. Jelly Bean's a
Yeah,
fun name.
it
That's
is
that's
his
cool.
real name, and much more entertaining than his real name, which is Gary. So,
Well, I guess if I would listen, I know some people named Gary. It's a fine name, but I guess if I was a musician and somebody wanted to call me Jelly Bean, okay,
you got to go with it.
I would probably say Jelly Bean is the thing. All right. Well, thank you, Glenn. So for me, I went my last concert. One of the last concerts for 2025 was I went to see Mark Farner. And if you're not familiar with Mark Farner, he's the last major player from Grand Funk Railroad. It's basically his thing now. And I went to see him in a small venue we have up here in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. And he's the guitarist, so he does his guitar thing. And it was I'm not gonna say it. I won't use that word. I'm gonna say it was fine. It was
Hmm.
enjoyable. Okay, I'm not gonna use the S word. But I but I came away with more of an appreciation for his drummer. His drummer was amazing. So I had to look him up. His drummer currently is Hubert Crawford, who goes by the nickname H Bomb. If you've ever seen Hubert Crawford, first of all, thunderous presence on stage. That dude hits hard. I don't know. I know drum heads are a thing that can get replaced. I don't know how many drum heads this young man goes through, but I'll tell you what, he was hitting hard. But the thing that also really impressed me was he sang backup on almost every song. Mark Farner even let him sing American Band, which is the reason people go see anybody that references Grand Funk Railroad's music. And when that song kicked in, Hubert was singing it. And I was just, one, just really, he did a great job. But two, I was just kind of like, well, Mark, this is your thing. Like, this is why we're here. No offense to Hubert, but I'm like, you're not singing the number one track that people came to see. So I thought it was cool that Hubert got to do that. But his presence on stage is clear. Now, I have a question for you. You and I talked about offering little educational nuggets when we can to the audience. He had those noise shields, those plexiglass noise shields on the side of his drums. So
Hmm.
from you, who are a drummer, please educate our listeners. Why would a drummer use those plexiglass shields? What's the point of those big walls around drum kits?
Yeah. So whenever you have microphones involved, you have a concept called bleed. So you have other things that the microphones are picking up besides what they necessarily are intended to pick up. So that's to stop drums from being picked up in the vocal mics and some of the other ancillary mics. It's easier for the sound guy to mix.
Okay. Well, I feel better because one, that was my answer to my buddy. I said that the drums aren't going to be as impactful to the because the bass player who also sang quite well and did a nice job. I liked him. He was kind of a groovy dude. The bass player was right next to him, just as the keyboardist was. And there's a small stage, so
Mhm.
the three of them were pretty tight back there in the rhythm section. So that was my answer, and I guess maybe again because of how thunderous some of his hitting
Mhm.
was. He,
Mhm.
I, is it necessary or is it a style? To really crush those drums when you're trying to play your music? Is that more just his energy level, or is that something that a lot of drummers do just because they learn to hit hard?
Yeah, it's not anything that's necessarily necessary. It's more of a style.
Okay,
Um, but some of the great drummers were great hard hitters. Tony Thompson, John Bonham,
right.
but then you have other guys that are a little more um, I don't want to say nuanced, but delicate.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. How would you describe yourself?
So that's funny because one bass player I played with said that I was powerful without being a hard hitter. The bass player that I'm playing with now says that I'm a hard hitter, but it's not overbearing. And my perspective as a drummer is that I've got really one person in the audience that I need to please, and that's the bass player. So as long
Okay.
as the bass player is comfortable with whatever it is I'm doing, then we know that everything is good.
Why is the bass player? I'm assuming it's the rhythm section, but
It's the
why is
rhythm
it?
section.
But why is the bass player like? How do you know if you're pleasing the bass player while you play?
We got to have that conversation. And we do talk about it. How are you picking up on my kick? Is it a little too much? Do I need a little bit do less? Just really, are we locking in? Because we're building that literally. We're building the foundation.
Right.
If he's good, then the guitarists are good. If they're good, the singers are good. So everything just kind of starts from what's happening between the drummer and the bassist.
Okay, like you always say, the drummer outward, right?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
you do. Okay, all right. Any other highlights, sir? Any other news bits?
No, that's all I have right now. I'm
Okay.
interested in moving on to to this our game.
Okay. Yes, the game. So I had I don't know, I guess I call it a bright idea. We'll see how it goes. Uh, Glenn and I were having a conversation about drummers, and you guys know already if you've been listening to this podcast, we always have to have our lists. And I suggested that we do kind of like a fantasy football sort of draft kind of idea. And the fun part about it is that each one of us will go as the lead person for a round. And what we have is we have 20 drummers listed on our percussionistics podcast draft here, the agenda. So there's 20. I won't give you the names because some of them might not be called, but there's 20 numbers here. Excuse me, Glenn got to choose 10 and I got to choose 10. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll. I went old school. I got my 20-sided Dungeons and Dragons dice.
Did you say Dungeons and Dragons?
Yes, Dungeons and Dragons
I'm
die.
not sure if I'm surprised that you have that, but I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. I got my whole set. You got to have your Dungeons and Dragons dice, right? So I'm going to roll per round two numbers, and we're going to select two drummers. Now, again, one of us will be the primary, so we get the first choice. The other person gets stuck with the second choice. And then you have to defend your selection. You have to talk about how you're going to make this person work in your band, in your style. So basically, what are you going to do with them? Kind of concept. So hopefully, we'll have some great banter back and forth. And I think, if nothing else, we will have some wonderful conversations when we get a drummer that we weren't necessarily thrilled to get, but they showed up and we said, sure, you're in the band. Glenn, any questions, any thoughts? You ready to go? Ready to
I'm
roll?
I'm ready to rock.
All right. So, since I am such a gentleman, I will give you the lead for the first round. So, you're going to get the pick of two drummers, and then you're going to tell me which one I have. So, the first number I've got is number 8. So, Alex Van Halen is one of your options, sir.
Mhm.
And the other one is number 10, Rick Allen from Def Leppard. So you're going to get either Alex or you're going to get Rick Allen. You
All
have
right.
the choice, sir. Which one would you like?
All right. So if I'm paying attention to the way that they're ranked on Rolling Stones and Consequence, I'm going to go with Alex Van Halen.
Okay.
He's ranked 51 on Rolling Stones, 48 on Consequence, and Rick Allen isn't listed on either one of them.
Okay.
This is a situation. This is a good one because I can't go wrong either way. I'm going to go based on style and influence. I'm going to go chalk, which means the safe choice based on the way everybody says you should go. I'm going to go with Alex Van Halen.
Okay.
He's
Why?
got more experience.
Hmm.
He has more cachet. Again, he's been doing it for so long. And if you look at Van Halen, the band, and Def Leppard, as successful as Def Leppard was and continues to be, Van Halen is an iconic band. So for my first choice, I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going with Alex. And I'm going to leave you with Rick Allen.
All right. So what kind of band are you going to build around Alex now? Because you
I'm going
don't
to
get Van Halen, sir. You get Alex.
I
The
get
only
Alex, but you
right.
know
So
what? I'm gonna play 80s heavy metal,
okay.
and it's gonna be big. It's gonna be boisterous, and he's gonna fill the seat.
Okay. All right. And you gave me Rick Allen. Now, Rick Allen's an interesting one to me. As you know, we put some background music behind our podcast, and each of us chose a background song. So right now, "Hot for Teacher" would be playing behind Alex. We'll drop that in later. But when you look at Rick Allen, I chose the song "Switch 625," which I don't know if you're familiar with that, but "Switch 625" is off of "High and Dry." It's an instrumental track. It's a good moving, heavy hard rock track. But this is pre-accident. So this is when Rick had both of his limbs at that time. But Rick, as we all know, was very successful after his car accident,
Mhm.
after he had lost the use of one of his arms. So when you look at Rick Allen, and now that he's mine and I have to build a band around him, I think I would probably, especially now that I'm a little bit older in life, I think I would want him to be in more of an electronic band or more of a band that would allow his use of his one limb because he uses his electronic drums more later in Hysteria and some other things. I probably would play to that strength right now. I probably would put him more less rock and a little bit more of one of those bands that kind of leans towards like a Talking Heads or something that leans towards a little bit of that electronic kind of sound, a little bit more of that pop sound, where maybe an in excess or something where you can have rhythms, you can have choruses, you can have that kind of fun style, but it's not so heavy that he has to be worried about being such a rock drummer. Maybe he can do a little bit more of those electronic drums we've talked about that are going to add a little bit more rhythm.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts about that? Changing genres for somebody.
Well, I think that that's what I'm going to do, especially if I get drummers that I wouldn't have selected. It's about what other genre would they fit in, serviceably.
Okay.
So I think your placement of Rick Allen in something electronic was more creative than I would have been. And
Okay.
it's a better choice than I would have been because I would have been like, I don't know, probably something a little bit more straightforward. Not to say that he's straightforward now when he's using, post accident, but yeah, that was a really good, a creative selection. That was
Thanks.
solid.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So Alex Van Halen and Rick Allen are off the board. So round number two goes to me. So my two options are, we obviously can't have the same guys again, so we'll strike them out. John Bonham, I think we've heard of him before, is number three, and number 17 is Levon Helm. He's from the band. So I have a choice now. I really want you to talk about John Bonham, but I'm going to be honest, I don't know much about Levon Helm other than the band itself. So I guess I would have to take John Bonham, only because I feel better in terms of my ability to have a conversation about John Bonham. Uh, I guess if I had him today and he was with me, I don't want to be so cliche, but I guess there really isn't anything you could do but build a blues rock outfit around him. I guess being such a being so familiar with Led Zeppelin, being so familiar with his output, I'd like to have another creative answer, another solid creative answer, like I did before for Rick Allen, but I don't think you could. I don't think I could put John Bonham in anything else but a blues band. That would leave you with Levon Helm, sir.
And if I would have had the choice between John Bonham and Levon Helm, as much as I respect John Bonham, I would have picked Levon Helm.
Well, look at that.
There
You're
you
welcome.
go.
It's a late Christmas present for you, sir.
Well, I appreciate that.
So tell me about Mr. Helm. What are you
So,
going to do with him?
Levon Helm, if you really listen to his playing, he's more of a funk drummer than anything else. He's very versatile. And, he was he honed himself on a lot of major black acts. And he plays
Okay.
like that. He's got this soul, this rhythm that was a little bit odd for a white drummer during that time. I mean, he started in the late 60s. So you listen to especially a lot of his bass drum work on songs like King Harvest.
Yeah, you
And
mentioned that. What album is that from? I am not familiar with King
oh,
Harvest as a song.
that may have been from
Is it a
the
well-known band
big.
song? Is that something
Oh,
that
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'll have to look it up.
hmm
I'll
hmm
have to check it out.
So, and that's what I would do with Levon Helm. I'd put him in a band like Parliament Funkadelic because he's had some serious chops.
Okay.
So it, really, but with his bass drum and his fills, drum breaks, he could do that. So I think he would fit well in something like that. So he would be in a band with George Clinton.
Okay. All right.
So that's what
Now,
I do with Mr. Helm.
on behalf of the audience, I have to ask. So, if you had John Bonham, if I had had enough knowledge of Mr. Levon Helm, and I had taken him and you were stuck with John, what would you have done?
I would put him in a band like Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, come
yeah.
on, defend. Tell me why. That is an interesting choice. How come?
So there's a lot of shuffles associated with that. It's kind of that Texas rock kind of feel. And so you listen to a song like Fool in the Rain and you
Mhm.
listen to his shuffle that he got from Bernard Purdy, really. Is a guy who was like famous for working with Steely Dan. Um, but he plays that kind of stuff. So it's a rock, blues, jazzy kind of thing. A little bit of well, I said bluesy. So yeah, that would fit him well. It's powerful. It does take some subtlety sometimes. You listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan's version of Little Wing. John
Mhm.
Bonham would fill. Chris Layton did a great job. He's the drummer for Double Trouble, but John Bonham would have done that expertless, expertly. Yeah,
Expertly.
yeah, not expert Leslie.
Right. We have created other words, but we did not create that one. We did not create expert Leslie. All right, interesting, because I needed to know that. So thank you for filling that in. All right, so 16 more still on the board. This is your choice, sir. You have the choice of number 20. So that's Phil Collins. Love that he has been selected for conversation. And number 5, Tommy Lee from Motley Crue.
Oh, all right.
Your choice,
I
sir.
like both drummers, but this one's not too hard for me. I'm gonna go with Phil Collins.
Well, that certainly works for me as the Motley Crue fan.
Yeah. So, I'm returning the Christmas gift. Here's
Thank you.
yours.
All right, sir. So let's talk about Phil. So what are you
So
gonna do? What are you gonna do with Phil?
so Phil Collins is one of those guys whose ability playing drums or other instruments is overshadowed by their more commercial success. I talked to some people that didn't even know Phil Collins was a drummer,
Okay.
and or thought that the only thing he did was da dun da dun da dun da dun 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 in the air tonight. You know, so no, Phil
Right.
Collins is a prog drummer. Does a lot of really good stuff. One of my favorite drumming songs in general is "That's All" by Genesis.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
listen to his feel in that and the way he gets around the set, the little rolls on the snare and the toms. Man, with Phil Collins, I think I could do a whole lot of things. It's probably because we've got other drummers on here, so I want to make sure that I leave room for everybody else. I'm going to do something creative. I'm going to
Okay.
put Phil Collins in almost a yacht rock kind of band where they're doing a lot
Okay.
of like a lot of 70s stuff, like Kenny Loggins, you know, stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Why? I don't see it. Isn't that now? I'm going to say something, and you, as the drummer, are going to probably tell me I'm terribly wrong, but I'm going to say it. As I have always, I was raised in the '70s. I can sing, entire catalogs of songs from the '70s. I've never, for most of what you just said, for most yacht rock, I don't consider the drumming parts difficult. I don't consider them above average in many cases. It's pretty straightforward. Is that a terrible thing to say? An accurate thing to say?
I think it's accurate, and I think it's understandable why you wouldn't see that, the technicality of the drumming in those songs. But when you really listen to it, Colin, they're doing some really creative stuff. You listen to, I mentioned Kenny Loggins, the song "This Is It." The drummer is Tris and Bowden.
Okay.
Really cool stuff when you listen to things that he's kind of doing in the background, just the beat itself and how he's propelling the song. So it's a song that, the song is a motivational song. This is it. Here's our
Okay.
chance, take it. And his drums tell that story. You kind of get the excitement and the hop and what he's doing and the way he's working the cymbals as the song is building up. It takes some scripting. It takes some understanding of not only the song is, um, the tone of the song, but also the message of the song. So
Okay.
yeah, being able to do that. So when you had the singer songwriters and the guys like a um, Kenny Loggins, Dave Mason, those guys, they're going to get musicians who aren't going to step on their feet, but still be able to add a dimension to the song that not average musicians are going to be able to do. And I think Phil Collins would have been able to do that. I think Phil Collins would have been a fantastic studio drummer.
Interesting.
Yeah,
All right. I
yeah.
can I can see that now. Okay. I have to stop using the word interesting. It is interesting. I'll have to pick up on go to thesaurus. That's a hard word to say. And find something else other than interesting. But I do. I find that fascinating. That's really cool. So Phil Collins is doing '70s yacht rock. And we've got, who did you put? Double Trouble ended up with John Bonham. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Very good. So that brings me to Tommy Lee. So for our listeners, because we're in our third podcast here for Percussionistics, and for those that don't know, I was a huge Motley Crue fan. They were my number one band for a long, long time. I say were because if you've been paying attention to hard rock music, Motley Crue's taken some hits in the last couple of years. It's not gone well. There's been some poor performances, and Vince Neil's really kind of dragging things down, and Nikki Sixx is a little bit of an interesting character at times. So it's hard to keep Motley at the top slot. But for a long time, I was a major Motley Crue fan. I find rock and roll, hard rock, heavy metal, bad boys, I guess I'll say. When I was growing up, they were fascinating to me. And nobody was more out of control than Motley Crue. They had some death-defying, literally death-defying moments.
Mhm.
So when I look at Tommy Lee, it's hard not to, just like I was saying earlier, it's hard to pull him away from that. But what I've noticed over the years, because I have Tommy's solo stuff as well, I would imagine, Doctor, you're probably not too familiar with Tommy Lee's solo things, but a lot of them have a lot of rap influence, a lot of punk influence. There's a lot of very off mainstream approaches to how he's recorded his music. I don't want to bore you with too many details, but he released an album where the fans were allowed to send in musical bits. I don't know if you ever had heard about this, but he basically invited people to record guitar parts, singing parts, drum parts, bass parts, and they submitted them to him, and then he took them and cobbled them together to make tracks. And created the music as given to him by the people. And some of the tracks are they're very incredibly deep and rich in how he put all these different layers together. But I think there's a side to Tommy Lee that really likes that aggressive punk sound. So I think if I was given Tommy, I wouldn't put him in a hairband. I would say scrap all that and go punk. Go something that's going to be a lot more aggressive, a lot more of a beat and thrash that he has to give, or that fast, quick beat that he has to give to punk. What are those songs? Usually a minute, minute and a half, maybe something like that. I think he would do really well if he was in concert and he could just thrash something out for a minute and then stand up, right, and then cheer everybody on and throw his sticks in the audience and get everybody excited, then grab a new pair and thrash out another song for another 45 seconds and again stand up. I think he'd be really good at punk.
Hmm.
Are you
Man, so that thing that he uses to rotate and flip over his drums would be flying in a punk song.
I think I'd give that up. I really do. I think Tommy, and I could go on about Tommy for a long time, so I will try to not have the Tommy Lee show take over here. But I think that what happened for that rotating and that more of a sideshow vaudeville kind of thing was them looking for that pop, right? Them looking for something to differentiate themselves. And let's face it, back in the 80s, who's spinning their drum kits around and, doing all sorts of goofy things? I remember I saw one tour, it went up around like a Ferris wheel. Like it was on the front, it was a big eye, and the drum kit just kind of went up around in this big eye and came down like a Ferris wheel. And nobody was doing that. And I think that shtick worked well for him. And again, I think it separated him. But I think if I were Dan, to have Tommy Lee right now sitting next to us as we did this podcast, and he said, "Hey, brother, what do you want me to do?" I think I'd send him down the street to a punk band and say, "Look, go have a good time. Give us those quick beats and give us those quick hammer moments on the toms and things, and be done with it. Then cheer and then jump around and then go back and do it again." Like he would love that high energy stuff. So
Mhm,
I think that'd be a nice fit.
mhm. Did Motley Crue have any songs that were kind of more in the vein of a punk
Not
song?
really. They
No?
had some faster tracks. There's a couple that the tempo is a little bit more upbeat, but not really. Most
Okay.
of the time they stayed in kind of that hair metal 4/4, 3/4 kind of stuff where it wasn't too fast. But they had a couple where he had a chance to. Most of what he has is the cowbell. He's famous for that and throwing that in a lot of songs. But they stayed very radio friendly for most
Mhm,
of the stuff when they hit. They knew where their money was.
mhm, mhm. Okay.
I think you'd give up that money for a little bit of fun right now. All right, so this is my round, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see who the dice bring us. The dice bring us number 16. Number 16 is Ian Pace from Deep Purple fame. And the other one it brings us is number 19, Carter Beauford from
Beaufort,
Beauford.
Colin. Let's not
Sorry,
get that name messed
sorry,
up.
Beauford from Dave Matthews. So I get my choice, and you're going to get the other person that I put. Well, since Ian Pace was mine and Carter was yours, I'm going to take yours. I'm going
Oh,
to take Carter.
thanks.
You're welcome. Hey, I gave you the gift. Now I'm taking. Now I have to return it.
Yeah, you took it exactly. Yeah.
So I saw Carter and I saw Dave Matthews Band once. I don't know how many times you've seen him live. Probably a couple times. I think you probably have seen him.
Like 8.
Okay, that's a couple times. Um, you know, Dave Matthews and Carter's playing and how he, at least the time I saw him, he looks, I don't want to say he looks bored, but I think he looks not used properly in Dave Matthews. And maybe I'm really misreading his intention, but here's why I feel this way. I've seen a lot of musicians, drummers, and some guitar players. I think there's an energy that wants to come out, and I got the impression that Carter's energy wanted to come out, that he wanted to do more, because a lot of Dave Matthews songs are, I don't want to call them mellow, but they're pretty. I don't call them stagnant either. What's the word? I guess steady. They're pretty steady in how they are given to us, right? There's some moments where he can shine a little bit, but I don't see many Dave Matthews Band songs really giving him that chance to Hulk out, if you will, right? To really get his things going, to get that I don't call it anger, but that energy, I guess, that real free flowing amount of energy coming out. I think he wants that. I think I got the impression, again, you've seen him 8 versus 1, so you are by far more the expert, but I think he wants to do. I want to go back to your Funkadelic, the Parliament Funkadelic. I think he wants to do more. I think he wants to have more output. Would you agree? Is he not held back, but is he truly giving us what he wants to give us in Dave Matthews?
So a couple of things when you understand Carter Beauford, just in general, if you even listen to his interviews and hear him talk about different things, he's kind of a laid back guy, not boring, just reserved, but engaging, very engaging. And I think he plays exactly like his personality. For Carter, I don't think it's about him. He's not going to be on a drum platform that flips over or like a roller coaster going around the stage. He's
Right.
back there, he's playing, he's blowing bubbles. Dave comes back to him and he whispers something. They both crack up, and Stefan Lassard to come over and he looks at him, and Carter point his stick to him. He's that kind of a drummer. So I don't feel that he's being held back. When you listen to stuff that he's doing, Colin, whether you like Dave Matthews Band or not, if you know a thing about drumming, if you understand that drumsticks are associated with drumming, you know that Carter Beauford is a phenomenal drummer from a
Mhm.
technical standpoint. He can do
Okay.
things that most players on our list of the 20 drummers that we've got here can't do. Um, so, and Dave understands that. And Dave says, look, I just step back and let Carter do what he does. So there's nothing to refine him. Um, so no, I wouldn't agree with it that he's being held back. Carter also did a lot of other work with other musicians.
Okay.
He was on John Popper's solo album, Vertical Horizon, and these are people that go after him to say, Carter, please bring to us what you do, and he does it really well. If I would have picked Carter versus anybody on this list, I'm going with Carter. He's my favorite. Well, I don't know. Carter, Jeff Porcaro. I don't
Hold on
know.
now.
I don't
Hold
know.
on now.
But I'm saying, Carter, what do you want to do, dude? I'll build the band around you. You tell
Okay,
me
but
what
if I
you want.
put him in a funk band, would he be okay?
Absolutely. But you
Okay.
could put him in a jazz band. He'd be okay. Now, he did try out for the Ramsey Lewis band. I don't know if it was a trio or what. And he didn't get picked because Ramsey Lewis said that he was a little bit all over it. Carter's not a linear drummer. He's going to do all kind of polyrhythms on his hi-hat. He's going to throw in a lot of fills. Carter Burford is Keith Moon reserved and everything works. So it's
Oh, Keith Moon takes his first hit today. Okay.
but
Wow,
so
a little strafing fire there. All right. Okay.
yeah. But Carter can play anything. He really can. He really can.
Okay.
So
Well, in this case, sir, he works with me. So
he's yeah.
I put him in a funk band.
So
That's
what
where I
I'm
would put him.
doing is working behind the scenes and I'm trying to get Carter Beauford to jump ship.
Wow.
Like, Carter,
Okay.
Colin really doesn't appreciate you. Come home. Come home.
Come home.
So
All right.
now
Well, you have Ian Pace, sir.
I
You have
mean
Ian Pace
pace.
from,
And
from
this is
Deep Purple.
kind of easy. Now I can't say that I'm a Deep Purple aficionado.
Okay.
Familiar enough with their work to know that if I had Ian Pace, I want to put all my drummers, everybody on my team, listen to this, Carter. One reason why you want to come here. I want to put you in a position to
Stop
be as
recruiting Carter,
successful
but go
as
ahead.
possible. So I think
Okay.
with Ian Pace, and to select a genre that we haven't picked so far, I'm going to put him in a grunge band. Something that's heavy, that's dark, that's straightforward. Ian Pace has a lot of chops, very articulate, but I think he can explore those in a grunge band. But I'm going to put him in something like a Pearl Jam or Soundgarden.
Interesting. A grunge band. 70s rock to grunge. All right, I can see that because you said you're not overly familiar with Deep Purple, but a lot of their stuff is it's a little grungy, I guess you
Hmm.
could say. You know, they when you look at Smoke on the Water, when you look at the Highway Star,
Hmm.
there's some grunge-esque
Hmm.
way that they make music. They definitely never went for the pop radio hits. They kind of did a little bit of the, thumb to the authority kind of thing a
Hmm.
little bit,
Hmm.
and were more focused on the playing. So I can
Hmm.
see that. It's an interesting choice. Okay. All right. Next, we've got I rolled a number while we were talking,
Uh-huh.
and I was listening to you, but I also want to keep an eye on the time. And I know we're gonna have to start re-rolling every once in a while now. So the next ones are yours,
And I'm
sir, if I'm not
seeking
mistaken.
revenge, so let me have them.
Okay. Will Calhoun of Living Color
Mm-hmm.
is one of your choices,
Mm-hmm.
and so is Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, man. Oh, wow. So this is another one where you can't lose.
You have to pick one of the which one's your favorite child?
Man. So no offense to the other. And I'll say that if I was asked the same question tomorrow, my answer could be different. But today, I'm going to go with Will Calhoun.
Okay.
Will Calhoun is a rock drummer, and with some that R&B flair, right? And I want to put all my drummers in position to be successful. I'm going to put him in a 70s rock band. I'm going to put him in the band like maybe even early 80s. I'm going to put him in a band like Van Halen.
Okay.
Definitely be able to do that.
Sure, no problem.
Um, but man, I'd also want to take advantage of some of the other things that he's able to do too, like a little bit of that R&B. So, man, see, that's why Living Color is such a unique band because they were so eclectic with all those things. But yeah, just for the sake of the conversation, to kind of frame how I would use him, it would be more in the vein of that 70s, early 80s rock band.
Nice. I agree with you. I can see him making that transition easily. I would think he could. Living Color to me is an interesting band in time because I think when they hit, Cult of Personality was such a major hit, but I wonder why there wasn't more. They had some other, I would say, decent hits, I guess you could say. Nothing like Cult of Personality, but some other radio-friendly work. But when you listen to them, I don't, it's not, the whole record wasn't radio-friendly in my mind. I don't, I want to say it this way. I don't know when they were recording their music, it seemed like they had more desire to be themselves than other bands at the time.
Right.
And I wonder if, I'm not saying they weren't successful, but I wonder if that held back some of that pop success or radio rock success. What do you think of that?
Well, I think one of the things that was part of their personality is they were kind of political and they made some social justice statements and things like that. And on at least now they came out during a time when terrestrial radio was still a thing, right? So
Right.
rock stations weren't really looking for positions and stances, so that could have hurt them in one way. Another way too, Colin, at the end of the day, and we notice across the many genres, it even happened on black radio stations. A lot of times stations weren't so quick to play music that was produced by other races that weren't predominantly by those produced by the artists that are usually listened to. There's like, for instance, are you familiar with a musician named Bobby Caldwell?
I've heard the name. I'm not
Yeah.
going to tell you that I can
There.
say much about him, but I know him.
So his most famous hit was a song called "What You Won't Do for Love," and it, there's you can go online and watch people's responses to hearing the song and then seeing who sings that song. And when
Okay.
people found out that he was white, they were like, "What?" Somebody said, I thought the guy was going to be more like Seal, and he ends up more like what's his name? I don't know. It was
Okay.
this
Vanilla
white
Ice or
actress.
something? Somebody very
Yeah,
white.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Bradley Cooper. So he said,
Okay.
"I'm expecting Seal, and it's Bradley Cooper." So
Right.
even the record company listen, we're not going to put you on your album cover. We need to come up with something else. So he drew himself sitting on a bench, kind of in a silhouette. So it was
Really?
for years before people knew that he was white because they didn't think that black stations, even though that song was more R&B, would play had they known that.
Okay.
So I think that I think Living Color kind of experienced some of that.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that that was the case. I do think your point is very valid. I guess what I've always been sitting with though is that there are certain bands that have way more respect and references now as I age than they did when they hit. And Living Color is one of those. When I hear people talk about Living Color, it's with the highest respect for everybody in that band. There's always somebody that says, "I can tell you these amazing memories, moments, recordings, solos, whatever it is," and they really love Living Color.
Okay.
And it just would have been nice if from a commercial success, a popularity success, that they had hit as much as I think they had the potential to hit.
Mm.
So there's my little, my little speech there about Living
Right.
Color and the respect that they're due. All right. So
Well,
Chad, oh,
yeah, Chad
sorry. Yeah,
Smith.
yeah, say so Chad Smith is mine. Oh, I didn't know where I wasn't
Okay.
trying to get Chad. So Chad Smith is mine. You know, I I saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers for the first time a few years ago. They had come over to Citizens Bank Park, which is where the Phillies play. For those not familiar with the Philadelphia area, so I went to the concert in the baseball stadium. I'd never seen him before. I'm not going to say I'm the biggest Chili Peppers fan, but enough. You kind of get inundated with their hits, so it's not like you can't really escape their songs. So I thought I'd go down and see him for the first time, and since I can't use the S word, I'm gonna say it was it was enjoyable, but I didn't walk away wowed. I didn't walk away going, "What an amazing moment in my musical career." I walked away going, "I'm glad I saw him." I thought that there was some cool things. Now, this is gonna echo back to the really, the Police were reggae based because, I learned that. So I never realized how much surfer music is in Red Hot Chili Peppers music. I never realized how much of that California surfer vibe was really kind of a structural part of Red Hot Chili Peppers music. So maybe again, everybody else knew that, and I missed the bus as well when I was standing there looking for the reggae bus. But when I watched Chad Smith and when I have seen him in other, because he did some stuff with Sammy Hagar and Chickenfoot and
Mhm,
some other
mhm.
things, and he's always got his hat backwards. He's always got that kind of surfer vibe. And I saw him when they did Back to the Beginning when they had that Ozzy tribute. I'd put him in a surfer band. I'd put him in a band that just does that surf. You're the drummer, I'm not, but whatever that, again, sorry to use the word simplistic, surfer type of beat to where it's just sort of a fun party vibe based thing. I think he would love that. I think he would like to be just on the beach somewhere, just tapping out his rhythms, smiling, his hat backwards, the sun on his face, and then when he's done, he can go have a beverage and go put his feet in the water. I think he would like that type. Not saying yacht rock, but I'm saying something that kind of has that surfer vibe. I think Chad would have a blast with that.
Mm.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about Chad Smith? And am I correct that there is a California surfer vibe stuff happening in the Red Hot Chili Peppers catalog?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if I would put Chad Smith and Dick Vale's band,
Okay.
wipe out. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na.
No, not that,
Maybe
not
they,
that.
well,
But more kind of the Ventures to some degrees. I mean, it just more kind of that. Just I don't know. There's a California vibe in certain bands, and I'm trying to. I can picture one band in my head, and I wish I could drop their name, but Fu Manchu. If you've ever heard Fu Manchu, they kind of have that again, sort of the van and the surfboards on top, kind of parked by the beach,
Mhm.
and everybody's just kind of chilling. And I think he would just have fun with something like that.
Yeah. I'm putting him because he wasn't my pick. I'm not going to be so specific as in the band, but the type of band. I'm putting Chad Smith in a funk band. I'm putting him in a band that backs the Beastie Boys. It is something like that.
There
Where,
you go. Okay, I can
um,
see that. Okay.
yeah, so I think that he's not to say to play in a band that you're talking about isn't serious music and would be a joke. I think that he's more of a regarded funk drummer. I think he needs something more of more substance than that. And I think if a funk band or something like that would be able to pull more of that out of him. So I
Okay.
think that his personality may be laid back, but his drumming, I think, is more intentional.
Fair enough. I believe the next round is mine, sir. And I rolled a 2, which gives us Peter Chris, and I rolled a 14, which gives us Jeff Porcaro.
Yeah,
This
I think
this
this is
this
how,
hurts
how
you. This hurts
yes.
you to the core, my friend. For those that can't see the video, because we're doing this both audio and video, the smile on my face is the biggest smile you are ever going to see from me, because I know Glenn right there is just ready to cry foul. If he had a red challenge flag, he would have thrown it at his monitor right now, because he thinks this is a bunch of BS. But I swear, I rolled the 2 and the 14. So I am allowed to choose between Peter Chris and Jeff Porcaro. Now, before we get to my selection, have you, my friend, spent any time with the new Peter Chris record?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I guess I probably should have made that one of my news bits. So, real quick, 1, I wouldn't. 2, there are it's not good. 2, there are a couple moments when I think Peter does really well in that lounge act kind of fun. Um, he sings a good doo-wop vibe. Peter kind of likes the doo-wop part of life, and really loves that Motown kind of sound, and he does fine. And there's a couple of tracks I think he lays them down pretty well. There's a lot of stuff on there that's just not what I want to hear anymore. And at his age, he should not be singing. I told you about one track in particular. I'll just leave it be for
Hmm.
the purpose of this podcast, but it's fairly sexually explicit and describes women in a pretty, a way I don't think we need to anymore in this day and age. But overall, it's just not a great release. So for those that have not checked it out, feel free, but it's not the best. So with that said, I have the choice between Peter Chris and Jeff Porcaro. Now, I will say, and I'm doing a lot of talking before I make my selection. That's just to torture Glenn. But when I think of Jeff Porcaro, I just think of Toto. That's where I know the guy from. I don't know much more. You are. I know he's ranking up there, maybe number 1. So there's so much more of his history with you. I just know him from Africa. I know him from Hold the Line. I know him from Toto stuff. I don't know much more. So I will take Peter Chris because I can speak more about him, and give you Jeff Porcaro because I think you'd like to be able to speak on him. So what would I do with Peter Chris? Just like I said, I'd put him in a lounge act. I put him in a doo-wop band. He has to wear matching. The band has to have the matching tuxedos on. He needs to be in the matching tuxedo. He's not going to get to do the rock band thing. I'm not doing the rock band thing with the face paint and all that stuff. He's going to do a Beatles type thing. Not that the Beatles were lounge acts, but he's going to do a Beatles type vibe with the matching outfits, the smiley parts that Ringo has in his world, And I think Peter Chris would do really well if we kept it light and kind of bouncy and kind of just sort of that thing. So that's what I would do with Peter Chris. And again, I think he'd love it. I think he'd appreciate it. I think he'd be happy to be in that world. So Jeff Porcaro is yours, my friend.
So I just want the listeners to understand that I think what just happened with you getting 2 drummers that I hold in high regard is the whole reason why you put this whole thing together. You wanted a matchup like that.
Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah. All right. So
are you still loving our podcast?
I'm loving it because look, still at the end of the day, if I had to pick between Peter Chris and Jeff Porcaro, of course I'm going with Jeff Porcaro.
Yeah, I know.
But Peter Chris, one, I really appreciate you mentioned Peter Chris in the same breath as the Beatles, which I did on the first podcast, and it was Hold the Presses.
Yeah, well, you brought me around.
I'm putting Peter Chris in Beatlemania. I'm putting him in the Brian Setzer Orchestra. He's going to do great in something like that.
This wasn't your guy to do anything with.
Anyway,
it's my guy.
So
hands off of my
Jeff
guy. That's the second guy you tried to steal. Carter, you actually tried to woo Carter away. You're like, don't even listen to that man. Don't even listen to that man. Come over here. So that's 2, in case we're keeping count. But go ahead.
So Jeff Porcaro, a lot more work than just Toto. a lot of Steely Dan. And if you are a drummer for Steely Dan, you are a studio monster. So the fact that Jeff Porcaro played for Steely Dan, it shouts out to his how good he is, his proficiency as a drummer. Um, Boz Scaggs, he played for. He did a lot of stuff. So where to put him where he would be successful is really almost anywhere. Man, he played on Michael Jackson. I mean,
Okay.
so I'm gonna put. You know what I'm gonna do with him? I'm going to build a studio, and
You're gonna build a
yeah,
studio
yeah,
just
yeah. I'm gonna have
for
my
him.
own
Okay.
record level, own record label. I'm gonna have my band, and he's gonna be the drummer in that studio band. And if somebody wants to put out a hit record, you come on in, we produce it. Here's your drummer. There you go.
Jeff Porcaro gets his own studio.
The studio is built around Jeff Porcaro.
Wow. Carter didn't get that treatment.
No, at two different types of drummers. Carter's not going to be everybody's best suited drummer for what they play, but Jeff Porcaro could do that.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
Oh,
So,
please give me. How come Mickey D's not on here? Give me Mickey D and Tommy Lee.
all right. So we are down to 8 left on our list.
All
All right.
right.
So I rolled again. I'm telling you it's legit. You'll have to decide whether or not you believe me.
Okay.
So now we have, and it's your turn,
It's my
correct?
turn. Hmm.
Right. You have Ginger Baker and Tony Thompson.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Those are the two that came up.
Well, you know who I'm picking.
Listen,
So,
the die rolled a 12 and a 1.
all right. So Rolling Stones has Ginger Baker at like 3.
Mhm.
Consequence has him at 11. And I know this for sure. Tony Thompson is at 62 on Rolling Stones, and Consequence has him at 99. So if we went just by the numbers, my choice would be Ginger Baker. But that's not where I'm going, Colin.
Well, heck no.
Tony Thompson. Tony Thompson. The reason that the Power Station, the band, exists was because of the way Tony Thompson played. They built the band around him. There's a song called Go to Zero where it was Tony Thompson and Robert Palmer. I almost said Robert Plant. Robert Palmer.
That would have been an interesting band, but go ahead.
And Robert sang while Tony played the drums. That was it. They added everything later on. It was just to get the power of his drums out there. He played on Like a Virgin. Talk about a hard hitter, man. Tony Thompson. So Tony kind of came to fame as a disco drummer, but was more renowned as a rock drummer. So he's versatile. I'm going to put him in a band like, so here's a drummer, so it's a backing musician, because I was going to say something like Sister Sledge, Dana Ross. He's played for them. No, I'm not going to do that. You know where I'm going to put him? I'm going to put him in a band that is, I'm going to put him in, is it Greta Van Fleet? Whatever the
Greta Van Fleet.
Greta Van
Okay.
Fleet. I'm going to put him in that band because they are kind of Led Zeppelin wannabes.
They are. Yeah.
I'm going to put him in the band and let him just explore the stadium with his talent. He's going to add more credibility to that band.
Interesting. Wow. Greta Van Fleet. Okay. All right. To a little bit of background for the audience, when Glenn and I first met each other and started spending time with each other at work, he educated me on who Tony Thompson was, because I think he passed, right? That's
Yes.
a few years ago, and I had very little knowledge, and Glenn has been a stalwart in his appreciation and love for Tony since the day I met him, and it's great to hear. When you started to answer, I was in my head, I'm like, get your passion out, sir. This is your chance. I'm sure at some point there will be a Tony Thompson episode for those of us
Yes.
that because Glenn's got to do it. He's got to get his Tony out, and I appreciate that very much. And I think I've made my appreciation for Ginger Baker very clear. What I would do with Ginger, though, because and I think we talked about the documentary Beware of Ginger Baker. I learned that he had a jazz mentor, and that's really who he cut his teeth under. I'd put him in a jazz band because I think that's what Ginger I think he had commercial success and did the rock band thing because it paid the bills and got him on tour, and he could live his very hedonistic lifestyle that Ginger had. But I think that if Ginger were to be able to choose happiness or choose his his way of having a presence, I think he would want to do jazz. I think he would want to not so much worry about things other than just playing, and I think he'd enjoy kind of that vibe in a jazz band. And again, it would harken back to his mentor days and the people that he hung out with when he was first getting started. So
Mhm,
I think he would fit very well.
mhm. I'd put him in a band like Paul Simon's band later on after Garfunkel when he
Sure,
got more into the African rhythm stuff.
I can see
As
that.
he was
Sure.
really into that. So, um, just another invitation for another drummer if he wants to jump ship.
Okay. Again, still trying to steal all of my folks. All right, so let's
Now, if
get
I was
on.
really cruel, Colin, knowing that Ginger Baker is a drummer you hide and hide regard, I would have stolen him. If anybody else would have been there except for Carter Beauford or Jeff Porcaro or Tony Thompson, in spite of you, I would have taken Ginger Baker so you'd be stuck with the others. Just telling you.
Okay, well, speaking of getting stuck with people, the next two that I rolled, and I know right now you're like, I want to see these rolls on camera,
Mhm.
are Bill Ward from Black Sabbath and
Mhm.
Keith Moon from
Mhm.
The Who.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew
Now,
yeah.
me sticking you with Keith Moon, and because it is my choice unless I'm wrong,
Mhm.
is it has made my entire holiday
Right.
season. It really
Mhm.
has.
Right.
You
Right.
should see Glenn's face
Yeah.
right now, folks.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about me taking Bill Ward onto my team.
Mhm.
Um, the interesting thing about Sabbath is, well, I'll say it this way. I don't same thing we talked about with some other bands. We just had that Living Color conversation. Nobody in Sabbath in my mind was really ever out to be popular. If you read a lot of books and articles, they wanted enough money to pay for their beer. They wanted enough money to get through the night, right? Have a place to sleep and basically just get on with their days. I don't think they were looking to be popular. And a lot of Sabbath music, although rather intricate from what I've learned over the years, I don't think Bill Ward is I don't think he's looking to. I think he complements Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler and looks to be. You mentioned the drummer bass relationship. I think his relationship with Geezer Butler in Black Sabbath is an excellent way of seeing like they need to lock this down because Tony's going to do Tony stuff, and Tony's going to do the things that he needs to get out of his own artistry. And I think Bill and Geezer just needed to play with each other basically and be in to make that marriage happen. And I think Bill did what he needed to do for Black Sabbath to be successful. But I think that if I was to create something around Bill Ward, just like with Tommy Lee, I think Bill would want to speed it up a little bit more. Black Sabbath kind of has that, I guess I'll call it melancholy, kind of that sort of, uh, you know, again, maybe one style of feel to a lot of what they do, right? Kind of that uh, moody kind of approach to some music. And yeah, they had some stuff that was a little bit faster, but I think Bill Ward liked the faster, especially being in England and being in that time when they were having that uprising of again punk bands and troublemakers and all those folks. I think he'd like to have something faster. I think he'd like to have something where he can hit hard a lot more than he did in Sabbath. So same thing with Tommy Lee. I'd put him in a punk band. I'd like to, if you watch back to beginning, he took his shirt off. Bill Ward is however old he is, he's still got his shirt off. And, I think he'd like to do a little bit more of that high sweat, high energy stuff and just really go fast and not necessarily have an 8 minute kind of graveyard visit song or whatever Sabbath might have or cosmic melody or whatever going on. I'm sure did it because it was enjoyable, but I think he'd like to do something that's real quick a lot more often than not. So, care to steal Bill, or can we go to Keith Moon?
I'm gonna. If I had to pick the two, Colin, I would pick Keith Moon. That's
What?
right. I would pick
I
Keith Moon
thought
out
I
of the
was
two.
gonna. Okay, I thought I was gonna stick you with. Well, there that's lets the air out of my balloon a little bit, doesn't it?
Right. So what I would do, the first thing would be an intervention. He would
You
walk
had
into a
this. You
room,
had this ready, locked and
yeah,
loaded. I just answer.
just in case. There'd be other reputable drummers around the room to explain to Keith Moon that drums are not a lead instrument. That you're part of a band. We don't want your personality, we want your skill. We're going to need you to play a little more linear, but we want you to be creative. Can you do this, Keith? No. Then I'm going to initiate a trade with Colin's bands and my Keith Moon to see if I can get over Ginger Baker or some. So look, I'm trying not to put drummers in the same genre multiple times, unlike my ride or die cohort who's put everybody in a punk band. So, but I
I
haven't
put
done
two
that.
people in punk bands. But go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna go with if I had Keith Moon, I'm putting him in a punk band, and you've got 2 minutes to do whatever you do. Just keep the time, and we'll see what happens. One of the most humiliating situations that a lot of drummers have ever experienced, and I know I have, where you do a recording session. So you have all these songs, right? So you record the songs, but then when the CD comes out,
Mm-hmm.
it's not you playing on some of those songs. They've replaced you.
Right.
And I would do that with Keith. I would say, listen, the rules of the game is I got to take you, right? So I have to use you. We're doing an album. Here's 8 songs. And whichever songs we can't fix, I'm bringing in Jeff Porcaro.
In his studio. So you're going to take this to
That's
Jeff's
right.
studio, and you're going to sit down and go, listen to this. I need your help.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Just
The harassment of Keith Moon continues. All right, Doctor, we've got 4 left before we land this plane. So
okay.
I rolled, and is your choice, correct? Okay. Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater or Ringo Starr. Those were the two numbers that came up next, number 6 and number 7.
And both of these are drummers again that are among your highest regarded drummers.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
But it's funny how all this worked out like that. So I can't even make a move here to spite you.
And you could.
I am going to go with Ringo Starr.
Okay. What are you going to do with Mr. Ringo?
Much to my chagrin, because I figured if you had to pick one of the two, you'd probably pick Mike Portnoy. So I'm going to take the higher road. I'm not going to do to you what you tried to do to me. I'm taking Ringo, and I'm putting him, because Ringo's a fine drummer. I'm putting him in a like another swing band. Kind of like I would have done with Peter Criss, but since Peter Criss wasn't mine, I'm gonna put Ringo in a swing band.
Okay.
Almost, I'm gonna put him in his all-star band, but make him the drummer.
Interesting. Why?
Y-
Why? Okay. So you would surround him by people like he surrounds himself with now.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Not much of a stretch for Mr. Ringo,
No, that's
though.
not. And not because he's limited. He just does what he did very well. Do I believe that that makes him one of the greatest drummers ever? Absolutely not. But from his influence, yes, he needs to be on the list, and he is. He's 14 on Rolling Stones, and he's 17 on Consequence. So he's in the upper echelon of both. Mostly, I would think, because of his influence. So I'm going to respect that. And he's there because of the way that he plays, that swing kind of a feel. Um, my job with everybody on my team and any drummer on your team that would like to come to mine is they're going to be put in positions to be successful. I'm going to make him successful by putting him in a swing band. He has that feel anyway to come natural to him.
Okay. Well, thank you for Mike Portnoy. I
You're
appreciate that.
welcome.
He's such a nice man. I do appreciate what Dream Theater is, and I appreciate what Dream Theater does. I think if I had Mike Portnoy though, because he's been in the Winery Dogs and he's been obviously in many other spots, I think I'd want him to be. Boy, this is going to sound it's going to sound a little harsh towards Dream Theater. I think I would want Mike to be more successful in his overall public impact. See, Dream Theater to me, when I think of them, and when I've been to shows where people are wearing Dream Theater shirts, when I've sold Dream Theater items that I've had for sale, it's a subsection, right? It's a subsection. Progressive bands have those subsections. You see, no, there's very few besides Rush. There's very few progressive bands, maybe yes, that have had major commercial success. Most of them kind of live in that sub, right below the crust of the earth kind of thing, right? They kind of hang, and for those that love them, they love them. I saw a band called Symphony X last year, and Symphony X fits into that mold. And there were some people going crazy for their stuff, loved their stuff, and I liked it a lot. It was quite enjoyable to listen to. They didn't have a very big crowd. It wasn't a major seller of a concert, and I think because again, you love them if you love them. If you don't, they're a band that you know exists. And I think that Dream Theater has such rabid, passionate fans, but I don't think Dream Theater's had that impact that Mike can have.
Hmm.
So I think I would want him. I'm going to go back and steal your Van Halen concept, or I'm going to go back and steal one of those types bands that will allow him to land publicly, so that Mike Portnoy has that major radio presence, that major uh, history with the public, where people sing more of their songs or go to more of his performances. I'd like to see this guy get over a little bit more with the public. Thoughts?
I agree. And you know Mike Portnoy a lot better than I do. I know just basically what's on the iTunes essential listening list.
Right.
And yeah, so um I defer to you and it sounds good.
Okay. Well, because I think again there are just some bands, and I'm not saying that all bands need to be commercially successful. I don't want our listeners to think that that is my only measure of success. But I think and you and I talked about this a few times, when you go to many, many concerts, when you buy and listen to many, many different recordings, I think I'd like to see some bands get more of that general crowd, the feeling that the general crowd has the respect that they're due. And I think some bands miss the respect that they're due because they're not publicly known. I just
Mhm,
think and if I was a musician, again, I'm not saying that that's what would motivate me to create art. I just think that everybody kind of has I think all of us are wired to want to feel accepted and want to feel promoted and appreciated. And it's a shame when some bands don't get what I think they deserve. So
mhm.
that's where it comes from. Not monetary, just a deservedness that people should have.
Do you think though, Colin, that part of being what they would consider successful is being underground?
And that's why I was saying I don't think that they don't want it. I just wonder if it's they don't want it or they've never had it. So they've come to terms with it. Let me give
Mm,
you an example. So I'm sure you're familiar with Trans Siberian Orchestra,
yes.
right? Well, the major player from that band, and I'm sorry his name is escaping me at the moment, came from a band called Sabotage. Sabotage is a metal band that never really cracked the surface. They tried, and some very good music was performed by this band. They would also kind of fall into a little bit of that progressive side of metal. You cannot argue with the success of TSO, right? I mean,
Mhm,
TSO is so over the top that people you walk down the street. I've heard people at work, right, that are not metal
mhm,
rock people talk about taking their kids to TSO.
mhm,
And I'm not saying that again, Sabotage didn't have their I'm not saying that musically and from an artistry standpoint, it's not like they didn't have their success, and it's not like Hall of the Mountain King and some other stuff is not well known. But it's well known in the metal community versus well known in the general public. And I think when you discover that, when you have that all of a sudden that success, I think to your point, it's very valid. Maybe that's not what they want, and they're okay with their little niche part of the world. I'm just saying that I think when I look at some folks, it'd be nice to see them in the limelight a little bit more.
Mhm.
So I don't
Okay.
know. I
Fair
can
enough.
maybe someday we'll get somebody on the show and they can talk about it. I believe you're still, or we're still waiting for your mystery guest to show up. So maybe your mystery guest will have had some of those things happen, and we can talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Still waiting, just throwing it out there. All right, doctor. Before we land the plane, the last two. All right, now this is your choice, right?
It is.
Okay, Neil Peart or Dave Lombardo from Slayer.
Okay.
Well, you don't
So,
know Dave much, so I think we know where this answer is going to be.
and even if I did, I'm going with Neil Peart.
Okay, now what are
And
you doing with Neil?
I'm putting Neil. So I guess it wouldn't be very challenging to say I'm going to put him in a prog band because that's where he is. But you've got to put him somewhere where he's going to be able to apply everything that he does well. I don't know what other genres. I think he could play any other genre. I think he's got the discipline to do that. I want him to enjoy it because that is paramount to being successful. So um, I've got to put him in a band like, if it's not Rush, I'm putting him in a band like Yes, and I think that would work well with like a Bill Bruford kind of a thing because he could do it. So Dream Theater, and now certainly I know that Neil Peart would be okay without being regarded as a top line popular musician. So he kind of had a hard time with some of the popularity that Rush had. So yeah, I would put him in a band like that. And I know that's low hanging fruit and an easy way out. But when you have him, we're talking Neil Peart, I don't know where else you go to honor him more than that.
But he doesn't get his own studio?
No,
I like that.
that's
Great
that's
answer.
that's Jeff Porcaro.
The Jeff Porcaro Honorary Studio. We've built it. We've built it for him. Well, that leaves me with Dave Lombardo. And for our listeners, if you're not familiar with Slayer, Slayer is one of the most iconic heavy metal bands in history. And Dave Lombardo has been their drummer. He is considered one of the top metal drummers ever. And I've seen Slayer many, many times and have had lots and lots of opportunities to feel and to hear and to experience Dave Lombardo's drumming. It's so complicated for metal music. It's so aggressive for metal music. He really has created such an impact on stage and an impact with this music. It's hard to downplay it. He is again considered one of, if not the best metal drummers of all time. But just as you said about Neil, I have to ask myself, could somebody who has played such aggressive music and such heavy rhythmic music for so long, could he play elsewhere? Would he be wanting to play elsewhere? And I'd like to think that he could, but to your point, I don't know if I would. I don't know if because he's had some side projects and they're all still very similar, still very heavy metal based stuff. Again, we drop tracks behind our podcast, so you'll be hearing Rain and Blood behind this conversation about Dave. And I just don't think that he's really wired any other way than to just be aggressive. I think it's just like Neil. I think Neil, to your point, could play anything. Neil has lived in his lifestyle in that progressive way, and I think that Dave Lombardo's lived his lifestyle in that aggressive way. And I don't think I could do that to the man where I would say, okay, you're going to go do 70s now, or you're going to go do whatever pop rock or something. I think he would just be completely miserable. So I'd have to put in another metal band as well. He can have, not going to build a man a studio, but he definitely can surround himself with metal musicians and just go hard and heavy, and that's how he's going to live his
Hmm.
life. And I
Hmm.
think he'd be happy with that.
Yeah, yeah, well said.
Well, sir, this has been fascinating. I hope it's been enjoyable for you as well.
I had a great time. I think aspects of it may have been a little bit of rigged, but whatever, whatever. Hopefully, I held up my end in those.
You did a great job, and other than
those
me saying the word interesting too many times, I thought that our banter was very, very strong. Uh, as a sneak peek going forward, Glenn and I have had some conversations about potentially having some more talent added to our crew here. So we'll keep that as kind of just let that lay there right now for our listening audience. But we definitely have some interest in adding some other personalities to our team. So we're working on that. As far as upcoming episodes, we have a whole bunch again still on our list of ideas. So we'll see which one we throw the dart at and hit next time. This was one I really thought would be fascinating. So maybe next time, Doctor, you can do the dart throwing and find something that you want to talk about. Maybe it'll be our Tony Thompson episode where we're going to start to have a little listening session for Tony. Who knows?
That would be marvelous. But I think I'd have to wean everybody in because even among my drumming friends, when I mentioned Tony Thompson, a lot of them have heard of him before. They weren't so familiar with all the work that he did. But we'll see.
Okay.
We've got a lot of other ideas that were like this one, and it was really fun. So that would be something to focus on, I would think.
Excellent. Well, for Glenn Jones, I'm Colin Bossler. Again, this was Percussionistics episode number 3. We will see you all again very soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.